The broken home. The ranch stretched wide under the fading evening sun, its fences leaning with age and its barns smelling of dust and neglect. What should have been a place of life felt more like a prison, and Aisha knew it better than anyone. She had once believed marriage to Rashid would bring security, maybe even happiness, but the years had carved that hope into silence. Tonight, her silence was broken by the cries of newborns. Twin girls, Zara and Zoya. Their wails filled the small wooden room, tiny fists clenching against the cold air. Aisha held them close, her heart overflowing with fragile joy. She whispered their names, tasting the sweetness of them on her lips. But she knew the storm was coming. The door creaked open, and Rashid stepped inside. His tall frame filled the doorway, shoulders hunched with anger even before he spoke. His eyes darted from the bundled infants to Aisha's pale, exhausted face. Instead of pride, there was only scorn. Two girls. His voice dripped with disdain. You gave me nothing but weakness. Aisha flinched at the words. She had braced for them, yet they cut deep. They are healthy, she whispered. They are blessings. Blessings. Rashid scoffed. His boots thudded against the wooden floor as he paced the cramped room. I needed a son, someone to carry my name, to work this land. Not two useless mouths that will drain us dry. The twins whimpered, as if sensing his hostility. Aisha rocked them gently, her arms forming a fragile shield. She wanted to argue, to demand compassion, but years of marriage had taught her the cost of defiance. Rashid's pride was a brittle thing, easily shattered, and every fracture turned to violence. He leaned closer, his shadow swallowing her. You fail me, Aisha. Again. Her lips parted, but no words came. In that silence, something shifted. The life she had fought to preserve, keeping the household together, enduring Rashid's cruelty for the sake of stability, suddenly seemed hollow. She looked at her daughters and felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her veins. She could bear Rashid's contempt, but could they? The night dragged on with Rashid storming out, leaving the door ajar to the cold. Aisha sat awake, cradling Zara and Zoya, her mind racing. Every insult, every blow, every bitter reminder of her husband's infidelity returned to her like shards of broken glass. She remembered whispers in the village about Rashid's affairs, women lured by his wealth and discarded just as quickly. He had betrayed her long ago, and now he demanded loyalty she could no longer give. Her heart pulled toward a memory. Imran, the neighboring farmer. He was everything Rashid was not. Gentle, reliable, a man who spoke with kindness instead of cruelty. Months earlier, he had stopped by to mend a broken fence. She had thanked him, and he had only smiled, his large hands working with ease as if it were no burden. That fleeting moment had lingered in her thoughts longer than she dared admit. And tonight, as the wind whistled through the ranch, she found herself yearning for that warmth. But yearning was dangerous. Rashid's suspicion was constant, his temper unpredictable. If he ever sensed she looked elsewhere for comfort, his wrath would be merciless. Yet deep inside, a quiet rebellion stirred. For the first time, Aisha allowed herself to imagine a different life, one where her daughters grew under protection instead of fear. The hours slipped by, the house cloaked in silence. Aisha finally laid the twins in their cradle, watching their tiny chests rise and fall. She touched their foreheads gently, whispering, "You will not grow up broken. I promise you that." Her words carried no certainty, only desperation. But even desperation was stronger than despair. The promise planted a seed, one that could either grow into hope or wither under Rashid's violence. When Rashid returned just before dawn, the smell of liquor on his breath, he muttered curses and slammed the door behind him. He did not look at Aisha, nor at the cradle. He collapsed onto the bed and fell into a drunken sleep, leaving her alone with the sound of his snoring. Aisha sat by the window, the horizon bleeding with the first light of day. In that light, she made a silent vow. She would endure him for now, but she would not let him destroy her daughters. Somewhere beyond the ranch fences, a kinder world existed. Somewhere, perhaps, a man like Imran could represent safety, not fear. Her heart thudded with both dread and defiance. The central conflict of her life had crystallized. Rashid's hatred of the daughter she loved, his cruelty toward her, and her growing need to break free. How far she would go, she did not yet know. But the path had begun, and though Rashid slept soundly in the next room, the true storm was already gathering, within Aisha and in the shadows of what was to come. The forbidden attraction. The days blurred into weeks, each one measured not by the rising of the sun, but by Rashid's temper. His bitterness had only deepened since the birth of Zara and Zoya. He ignored their cries, cursed their presence, and treated Aisha as though she were an intruder in his home rather than his wife. Yet amid this darkness, a quiet flicker of light entered her life in the form of Imran. Imran was everything Rashid despised. Where Rashid valued control, Imran valued kindness. Where Rashid's pride was brittle, Imran's strength was steady and unspoken. Aisha had known of him for years. His land stretched along the boundary of Rashid's ranch, but they had rarely spoken until necessity forced it. One morning, a storm tore through the valley, toppling fences and scattering livestock. Rashid, nursing a hangover, barked orders but made no effort to help. Aisha, clutching her shawl against the wind, stepped outside only to find Imran already mending the damage. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. He stood tall, shoulders broad, hands working with practiced ease as he hammered a post back into the ground. Aisha hesitated, unsure if conversation was safe. Yet there was no mockery in his eyes, no judgment, only a quiet patience. "Thank you," she murmured. Imran gave a small nod. "Children need safe fences. Wolves don't wait for drunken men to wake." His words were simple, but the truth in them struck hard. Aisha lowered her gaze, ashamed yet grateful. That morning marked the beginning of something she could not stop. Their encounters remained brief at first, moments shared near the edge of the land, polite exchanges about weather or harvests. But beneath those words flowed an unspoken current. Imran noticed details Rashid never had. The tired lines around Aisha's eyes, the way she shielded her daughters when Rashid barked too loudly, the quiet strength she carried. And in turn, Aisha noticed his steady hands, the calm assurance in his voice, the rare but genuine smile that softened his rugged features. Rashid, meanwhile, grew increasingly cruel. He returned late at night, smelling of other women, his infidelity flaunted like a weapon. Aisha endured, as she always had, but now endurance felt different. Before, it had been survival. Now, it felt like waiting for something she had only begun to allow herself to imagine. One evening, after Rashid stormed off to the village, Aisha carried a basket of bread to the boundary fence. Imran was there, repairing a broken gate. She lingered longer than she should have, offering him food. He accepted with a grateful smile, tearing the bread and handing half back to her. "You work too hard," he said. "It's the only way I know," she replied softly. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world stilled. No storms, no shouting, no fear, only the quiet bond forming between them. It was dangerous, this pull she felt, but it was also undeniable. In the following weeks, their meetings grew more frequent, though always hidden in plain sight. Aisha would walk the fields under the pretense of tending livestock, and Imran would be nearby, fixing a fence or hauling supplies. Their conversations deepened, about books she once read, about the daughter she cherished, about his dreams of expanding his farm. He listened, truly listened, in a way Rashid never had. Yet guilt gnawed at her. Each time she returned home, her heart raced with the fear of discovery. Rashid's eyes were sharp, his suspicion quick to ignite. She imagined the violence he would unleash if he ever suspected her of betrayal. Still, when she thought of Imran, her fear mingled with something intoxicating. Hope. One night, after soothing Zara and Zoya to sleep, she sat by the window and whispered to herself, "What am I doing?" The moonlight spilled across her hands, trembling in her lap. She knew the answer but could not admit it aloud. She was seeking life in a place where Rashid had given her only decay. The turning point came on a quiet afternoon. Aisha was gathering firewood when she stumbled, the basket spilling across the ground. Imran, passing by with his cart, rushed to her side. His hand brushed hers as he helped her rise. Neither pulled away. For a long moment, their hands remained clasped, the silence between them charged with forbidden truth. Aisha, Imran's voice was low, steady. She shook her head quickly, eyes darting toward the ranch house in the distance. We can't. No, he agreed, but his hand lingered a heartbeat longer before releasing hers. That evening, Rashid returned drunk and muttering, unaware of what had almost transpired. Aisha sat by the cradle, heart pounding, knowing that a line had been crossed. She could no longer pretend her heart was untouched. The conflict within her had sharpened. Loyalty to a cruel husband, or love, dangerous, illicit love, for a man who offered her dignity. As the night deepened, she listened to Rashid's snores and thought of Imran's steady hand. The guilt and longing warred within her, neither victorious. She did not know which path she would take, but she knew this. There was no turning back. Secrets and betrayal. The days turned heavier, their silence laced with suspicion. Rashid, once careless in his infidelity, now prowled through the house like a predator sensing a rival. He had begun watching Aisha with a narrowed gaze, questioning her absences, counting her steps when she ventured near the fields. His paranoia fed on itself, and Aisha felt the weight of his scrutiny pressing closer each day. The children were growing, their laughter a fragile light in a home thick with shadows. Yet even their presence did not shield Aisha from Rashid's rage. One morning, when Zara spilled milk across the table, Rashid struck the child with the back of his hand. The cry that followed pierced Aisha's heart, but her protest was met with a furious glare. "Control your brats," Rashid hissed, "or I will." That night, after Rashid had gone to drink in the village, Aisha sat with Imran near the boundary fence. She held her daughters in her lap, rocking them gently as Imran leaned close, his voice hushed but urgent. "You can't stay here," he said. His eyes burned with conviction, the kind Aisha had never seen in Rashid. "He will break them as he has broken you. Let me take you away." Her throat tightened. The longing to say yes nearly spilled out of her, but fear chained her tongue. "If he finds out, he already suspects," Imran cut in. His hand brushed hers, not by accident this time. "And suspicion will be enough to condemn you. You need to think of survival, not shame." The word shame hung between them like a blade. Aisha knew the truth. Rashid's violence would never be satisfied. His fury needed a target, and she and the twins were all he had. Imran's offer was not temptation, it was lifeline. But every step toward him carried the risk of destruction. The village had already begun whispering. Women at the well traded knowing glances when Aisha passed. Men shook their heads, muttering that Rashid's wife spent too much time at the fence. The gossip trickled back to Rashid, feeding his suspicions like dry wood to fire. One evening, he staggered home earlier than expected. Aisha was outside, gathering herbs, when she heard his voice carry across the yard. "Where were you?" His words were slurred but sharp. She steadied her breath. "In the garden." Rashid's eyes searched her face, hungry for lies. "You think I don't hear them? The villagers talk. They say you've been meeting him." Her heart lurched, but she forced calm into her voice. "People talk when they have nothing better to do." His hand shot out, gripping her arm so tightly she winced. "Do not play games with me. If I ever find you with him." He let the sentence hang, the threat more chilling than any strike. That night, Aisha could not sleep. She lay awake, the twins nestled against her, while Rashid snored in drunken stupor. Every sound outside, the creak of wood, the howl of the wind, felt like a warning. She knew time was running thin. Rashid's suspicion would soon become certainty, and when it did, he would not hesitate. The next day, she met Imran in secret, the urgency between them no longer hidden. "He suspects," she admitted, her voice shaking. I don't know how much longer I can protect the girls. Imran's jaw tightened. Then you cannot wait. Take what you need and come tonight. Her breath caught. Tonight. The thought terrified her, but the idea of staying terrified her more. She nodded faintly, though her heart thudded with dread. But fate was already moving faster than she was. That evening, Rashid discovered a scrap of paper Aisha had tucked beneath a basket. A simple note, her list of what she must pack for the children. But in his eyes it was proof of betrayal. He stormed through the house, the walls shaking with his rage. Aisha froze when she saw the crumpled note in his fist. She opened her mouth to explain, but no excuse would matter. His fury had already decided her guilt. You think you can leave me? He roared. You think you can shame me before the whole village? The twins began to cry, their wails filling the tense silence. Rashid's face twisted, torn between striking Aisha and silencing the noise. In that instant, Aisha realized the danger had shifted. It was no longer about her. It was about the lives of her daughters. Summoning a courage she did not know she possessed, she stood tall, meeting his eyes without trembling. If you harm them, you will answer for it. For a moment, Rashid faltered, startled by her defiance. But then his expression hardened, darker than she had ever seen. Then you leave me no choice. The word struck like a death knell. Aisha understood then that the storm she had feared was no longer on the horizon. It was here, inside her home, and it would consume them all unless she acted. The deadly consequence. The house was silent, yet silence carried its own violence. Aisha stood near the cradle, her daughters whimpering softly as Rashid loomed in the doorway. His face was carved with fury, the crumpled note still clenched in his fist. The evidence of her intent, her plan to leave, was enough to seal her fate in his eyes. You think you can run? He growled. His voice was low, but beneath its restraint throbbed a promise of blood. Aisha's heart pounded, but she did not step back. She had endured his threats before, but never with her daughters at risk. I will not let you hurt them, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Rashid's laugh was sharp, hollow. You? Stop me? You are nothing without me. These girls are nothing but burdens. And you, his words broke into a snarl. You shame me with your betrayal. He lunged forward, grabbing her by the arm. Pain shot through her, but she twisted free, shoving him back with surprising strength. Years of swallowed fear erupted into defiance. You betrayed me long before, she hissed. Every woman in the village knows it. The truth sliced deeper than she expected. Rashid's eyes widened with a flicker of rage, not just at her words, but at the shame they carried. His pride, his entire sense of power, had been built on domination and secrecy. To be exposed was intolerable. He struck her. The force sent her sprawling across the floor. The twins wailed, their cries piercing the heavy air. Rashid turned toward the cradle, his expression twisted, and for the first time, Aisha understood with horrifying clarity. His violence would not stop with her. Summoning her strength, she scrambled up, placing herself between him and the children. If you touch them, you will answer for it, she warned. Her defiance only fueled him further. With a roar, Rashid reached for a heavy iron poker by the hearth. He raised it high, intent clear in the darkness of his eyes. The door burst open. Imran stood in the threshold, breathless, eyes darting between Aisha, the children, and Rashid. Word of Rashid's rage had spread quickly through the village. Imran had come, compelled by a sense of duty that went beyond fear. Enough! Imran's voice thundered, filling the room. Rashid snarled, his grip tightening on the poker. Stay out of this. She is mine. She is not yours to destroy, Imran retorted. His massive frame moved closer, each step deliberate. For the first time, Rashid faltered, his authority cracked by another man's presence. But pride, once wounded, is more dangerous than fear. With a guttural cry, Rashid swung the poker. Imran caught his arm mid-swing, the impact rattling through the room. The two men struggled, strength against strength, fury against conviction. Aisha clutched her daughters, shielding them as sparks of violence lit the air. The struggle ended suddenly. Rashid lost his footing, crashing against the edge of the hearth. The poker clattered to the floor. He gasped, a broken sound, before collapsing in silence. The house stilled, save for the frantic breathing of those who remained. Imran stood frozen, chest heaving, staring at Rashid's lifeless form. Aisha's eyes filled with tears, not of grief, but of release. The man who had tormented her, who had threatened her daughters, was gone. Yet the weight of what just unfolded pressed heavy on her chest. The twins whimpered softly, their small hands reaching for her. She gathered them close, pressing her face to their hair. For the first time, she could whisper the words without fear of reprisal. "You're safe." Imran knelt beside her, his rough hand brushing hers. "I am sorry," he said quietly, "but it is done." Aisha met his gaze. Within it, she saw not triumph, but sorrow. A man who had stepped into violence not for pride, but for protection. She nodded, her voice low. It had to end. Outside, voices rose as neighbors approached, drawn by the commotion. Soon, they would see the truth for themselves. Rashid, undone by his own cruelty. Aisha, freed but scarred. Imran, protector and witness to the storm. Gossip would spread, but this time, shame would not be hers to bear. As dawn broke, the first rays of light spilled across the valley. Aisha stood at the threshold of her home, daughters in her arms, Imran by her side. The land stretched before them, uncertain but alive with possibility. She had lost much, too much, but she had preserved what mattered most. The story was not over. Freedom carried its own burdens, and survival would demand strength she had only begun to discover. Yet for the first time in years, she stepped forward without chains, guided not by fear, but by the fragile, dangerous hope that had once been forbidden.